Do I need to?
Okay, I start recording. Whatever you say now, it can be held against you. Okay. Hi, honey.
He said there was drinks, so he shut up.
Yeah. Okay. So we're that's all it. Yeah. So we started talking about the nature of Pesach after the destruction, how the rabbis had to sort of restructure that because the whole thing revolved around the Korban. So now I want to look at a little bit more than the Pesach, what we call today the Seder, like the Haggadah. So I sent out the question. Did you think about that? Like, what is wrong with the 4 questions? There's something fundamentally wrong with them, with all the questions.
Besides the fact that we sing it to a tune that you learned in the back.
Yeah. So
even you're 95 years old, you sing that.
We only talk about boys.
Okay. So we'll see. Leave it aside. Let's see. Let's read the Mishnah. So there's a Mishnah in Psahim. Source number 1 is from the 10th chapter of Masechet Psahim, where I just want to make sure that the microphone is on. Yeah, okay. Otherwise, it's the 10th chapter of Masechet Psahim. This is the Mishnah that we already read. Arvei Psahim samuch laminha lo yochal adam ad shetashach. One may not eat until it gets dark on the eve of Pesach, close to minha until darkness. Afilu ani shebiYisrael lo yochal ad sheyasev. Even the poorest person in Israel, the nation, may not eat until he reclines. Velo yifhatu lo me'arba kosot shel yain va'afilu min hatamhui. They cannot give him less than 4 cups of wine, even if from the soup kitchen. So the notable thing about this Mishnah, which we already did, is that the subject here, the protagonist, is that man, right? Lo yochal adam, the ani, they have to give him. It seems like there's only one person who's doing the seder. So let's look at Mishnah Bet. Mazgu lo kos rishon. They served for him the first cup. Some read it as they mixed for him the cup, like limzog in at their time was the right balance of water and wine. So they served for him the first cup. Bet Shammai say, and addresses in the plural because Bet Shammai is a school, a lot of people. It's not the one. They say he blesses for the day, meaning Baruch Mekadesh Israel Bazemanim, and then blesses the wine. Bet Hillel say he blesses over the wine and then blesses for the day. The significance of that is that still at that time they couldn't figure out what comes first, Borei Pri HaGefen or Mekadesh Israel. Later on, they established the rule that you always start with Borei Pri HaGefen because it's the frequent one, Tadir V'Sheno Tadir. But we still have, at that time, a debate when exactly to say the bracha. Fine. But this is still not the main issue. Now, Mishnah 3. Heviu lefanav, they brought in front of him. What? We don't know yet. Metabel b'chazeret, he dips in the chazeret. Until he reaches the appetizers. So those terms are difficult to translate. Like, what is hazeret? Hazeret in modern times, for many, many years, has been so in the Ashkenazi community is chayin, right? Horseradish. And it's supposed to make you cry, right? It has to be so strong it makes you cry. Sfaradim, for hazeret, I just think they put another stalk of celery. And it's just symbolic. Nobody does anything with the hazeret. The other problem with the Hebrew is metabel ba-hazeret. Ba means in the, but it could be also understood with the. So is it the hazeret, you dip in something, or is the hazeret the dip? That's a problem. So it
can't be celery.
It can be celery, right? So parperet apat, parperet is usually something that goes with the pot, with the bread. And then we'll see what does it mean that until he gets to this point. Heviu lefanav matzah v'hazeret, hazeret again, haroset u'shnei tafshilim. So they bring in front of him matzah, hazeret, haroset in 2 dishes, even though haroset is not a mitzvah. So why would I think that hazeret is a mitzvah, right? Where does it come from? Where in the story of Pesach do we have hazeret? Where do we have haroset? So where do we have the 2 dishes? So the two dishes are supposed to replace the korban of Pesach and the additional korban Haggadah. That was like because the goat was not big enough for all the people who would come to celebrate. But then you have at least the other korban that you bring on your own, and that is something that you share with everyone. And that has been replaced in today's Haggadah with the egg that some people eat, some people don't eat. We eat it at the beginning of the Seder, right after the celery or the karpas. We eat the eggs and other things. And
Say a blessing.
Shakol. No, we say Shakol for it, and that also calms people. You know, they're you could eat more than one egg. Let's put it this way, and vegetables with it. Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Tzadok Omer mitzvah. Rabbi Eliezer says it's a mitzvah. ובמקדש היו מביאים לפניו גופו של פסח. At the time of the temple, they would bring before him the Pesach itself.
That's the Pesach offering.
The Pesach offering, the actual meat, right? Okay, so now what happens? Mishnah Dalet, mazgu lo kos sheni, v'chan haben shoel aviv. They served him a second cup, and here the son asks his father, so what's wrong with those two Mishnayot? Something is wrong here, from the way we know the Haggadah and the Seder.
Second cup of wine.
The timing of the second cup of wine and
the second cup later. Way later.
so now they teach him that v'men da'at baben aviv melamdo. Here the son asks his father, and if the son has no wisdom, v'men da'at baben aviv melamdo ma nishtana alay la'azeh mikol. That's what we consider the beginning of the Haggadah. But something came before that. The food, the matzah. You already ate the matzah. So what?
I take it.
What?
I'm sure
You take it?
I'm taking it.
So what is going on here? It's so in the Talmud, later commentators explain this, that you bring everything in front of you dip. I mean, there's a way to explain everything. You know, if you want to explain, you can explain any text, right? So what it means is the table is set. You dip with the vegetables and to eat, and then they bring the matzah and the chazeret and everything, all the food on the table. And just before you're about to eat, they remove everything. And then the son goes, what's going on here? Right? That's the problem, is that this is not what's written. That's something that we work into the text. What it seems that the way the Mishnah is structured, I mean, if let's put it this way, if really we talk about removing the whole table, or they would call there was actually a board on top of
Like the Bedouin have.
Yeah, no, like when you have temporary tables, they call them donkeys.
tables they move.
So they put the donkey like a board on top of it, and they could remove it. So
Horses.
horses, yeah. And see, the Israeli calls them chamurim, yeah. So the Mishnah should have said that. Umesalkin shulchan, 2 words. It's not that difficult. Remove the table. What I need to assume that. But that brings us to why those questions are problematic. So the son asks questions, right? And then let's take it according to what we do today, the way the Talmud explains the Mishnah, that Mishnah Gimel just tells you that you put everything on the table, but then you remove it just before the meal, before the Haggadah. Now the son is going to ask those
Does it
questions.
say you remove it?
It doesn't say it. That's
Then
in the
why do you
commentary in
have
the Talmud.
So why would you have to remove it?
He dips into
Because you want to.
But the questions are not, why is it you gave us the food, now you take it away? The question
Right.
is, why is it chametz and
Right.
matzah, or why is it?
It's
But you're assuming,
Why would you like him afilu pam echad?
but you're assuming those are the questions he's asking.
No, he's right. So there is the story in the Talmud goes that Rav did this to Abaye, who grew up in his house, and when he removed the table, Abaye says, "What's going on?" And Rav said, "Now I'm exempt from saying manishtana. I triggered your curiosity. I'm good." So that you take that also, right? That's good.
Yeah.
Now, the real problem today is that the only way to trigger the kids' curiosity is by doing something that's not in the Haggadah, because that has been drilled into them in school like 100 times, and they did a model seder, and then the whatever, So that's a problem. So, but look at the questions. The son asked this question: why is this night different of all nights? What is the difference? All other nights we eat hametz matzah. Tonight we only eat matzah. All other nights we eat all vegetables. Tonight we only eat maror. All other nights we eat the meat roasted, stewed, or boiled. On this night it is all roasted. We don't know this question. It's not in the Haggadah. All other nights we dip once, and tonight twice. What's the problem? Fundamental problem with all these questions?
How do you know?
How do you know that?
It's too early. You haven't done
You didn't eat yet. Even if right now when they set the table, they put only matzah, only maror, maybe the second course will be bread. Maybe it will be other vegetables. How do you know? Those questions make no sense
at that time.
unless they come after the meal. That is the proof that the reading of the Talmud here is outdated, meaning it fits the custom as it has been established 200-300 years after the Mishnah. They already they did it differently because since they didn't have the Pesach, so the center of gravity shifted from the meal to the discussion, or maybe they figured out that once you eat, forget about the discussion, right? Nobody's
So
going.
when they had the Beit HaMikdash, they didn't have the whole Haggadah.
No, they
They
just
gave the korban.
they had the korban, they sang the Hallel, and that's it.
Rabbi,
You didn't need more than that.
The Seder plate
Yes,
they had the matzah in front of them when they sat down.
yes.
So they already knew that we weren't going to have challah tonight. We weren't going to have bread.
They come
They
later.
met- But maybe
No,
coming
no, no, no,
afterwards.
First of all, they didn't have a Seder
Looked
plate.
Looked like
but,
challah.
but they had
Right.
they had
I think they was fun.
matzah. And there was something
The
like
Shulchan Aruch
matzah.
describes
Yes.
what it looked like.
So
Yeah.
they knew that was different than the normal.
Right, but with vegetables, let's say, you're a guest, or you come to a meal, and they put lettuce, or Brussels sprout, whatever, on the table, and then you say, "Hey, how come there are no tomatoes?" So wait, we'll bring the tomatoes later.
Patience. So
patience,
maybe,
right?
Maybe it is coming. He said, why did we didn't? Okay.
Right.
But this
Just assuming
son
that this is-
already went through one cycle, so he knows they're not going to have matzah.
Oh, so but what happened in the first? What happened in the first Pesach, right?
That's it.
No, but
But-
then you have the other problem, which is the whole idea is that you should get the kid curious. But if he
Right.
already knows it, then he's not curious, and these aren't really good
Right.
questions.
So by and large, this problem is the way we do it today. The teachers, everybody's so excited about Pesach. It's something that you could really teach for a long time with all the little details. So they drill the kids with it, and they make pop-up Haggadot and color in Haggadot and whatever. By the time it comes to the Seder, the whole element of surprise is removed. Back in the day, you're not supposed to tell anything to the kid. They travel, they come to Yerushalayim, they do the Pesach, and then boom, they see the whole thing, and then it's beautiful. But still, it's still a very, there's no
Even
question.
that doesn't work because it would only work, as Milt said, it would work the first time the kids saw it.
Yeah, but when you, okay, so the first time you went to Yerushalayim, right, you remember it was a great experience. The second, then you go back to your village and you work hard all year round. Yeah, you remember what was done. There was not the element of surprise as much as the element of excitement. It's like going to a rock concert, right? Once a year. So we have this. It was a rock concert of thousands of people saying Hallel together. Yeah. Oh, Disney, right? There's still excitement. Yeah.
I mean, just think of it also.
It is about it.
They said, I think it says in the Gemara that people went on the rooftops
Yes.
in Yerushalayim and they sang Hallel
Mm-hmm.
together from all the different homes. And the fact that could even be coordinated,
Yes.
that people would be able to sing at the same time. But
Kezait, right?
now
They say
we
Do you think it was at the same time?
yeah.
Yeah, Kezait pisha umarora upaka igra malela. They say with the first bite of the Pesach and the maror, the roof would explode with the singing. So actually, I don't know how you coordinate that many people, but when I lived in Yerushalayim and we did Sukkot together, so the courtyards are and the balconies are, they're all in each other's face, and we started singing and they were singing, and we got to coordinate like through the balconies, and it was beautiful. So imagine, to go to a larger scale would be really amazing. So the kid, it's obvious from the way the Mishnah presents it, that the way the Pesach used to be, at least the way the Mishnah envisioned the way the Mishnah viewed the Seder was bring the food, eat in a way which is different than the way you eat normally, and that will prompt the kid to ask questions. Now, if you finish the meal and the kid still sits there like, Okay, like I don't know, like today's kids, right? So you tell him, right? So, there are other. This is not the only source that I'm going to use for that to argue that it was done, because we have to still look at the questions. The questions are not exactly the question that we asked today. So we do the hametz u'matzah one, right? We do sh'ar yerakot. We don't do the one about the meat being roasted, stewed, or boiled, because that only applied at the time of the temple, or shortly after the time of the temple, when people still ate roast meat. And then maybe 100 years later, there was a decree not to eat roast meat because that would make people think that you're doing korban outside the temple. But I think the decree was only about a whole goat. If you wanted to eat roast, you could eat roast. But then people stopped eating roast altogether. But those three questions, if you don't go to the next one of the matbilin, those three questions cover everything. And the three elements of the seder, they correspond exactly to Pesach, Matzah, Maror. Because we have, about the Matzah, we ask Hametz Matzah. About the Maror, we ask Sh'ar Yerakot, and tonight Maror. And about the Pesach, we say every other night we can eat the meat any way we want, but tonight it has to be roast. Then the fourth question, and right now we're sort of going in a different way than we did last time. Less vertical. I'm sort of putting data and then try to sort it all together. And then we have this question. On all other nights we dip once. On this night we dip twice. But that's not the question that we say today. Right? It's confusing. Remember the question that we asked today?
We don't dip at all.
Right. We say all other nights we don't dip at all. Tonight we dip twice. So where did this come from? So the Talmud discusses this Mishnah and reads, every other night we dip once. And they say, what, is it an obligation? Why do you say that? Lo mistayed de la. It says like, I won't have a meal if I don't dip. So they no. Rewrite the Mishnah, which is something the Talmud does frequently. Even though on one hand we say everything in the Mishnah was redacted and edited by Rabbi Nasi and you can't touch it, but when you run into a wall that you can't explain the Mishnah, I said, okay, let's rewrite it. Something went wrong. So instead of anu matbilin pam ahad with dip once, en anu matbilin afilu pam ahad, you just added two words in Hebrew. We don't dip even once and tonight twice. So the question is, what happened within the Mishnah and the Talmud that we have this discrepancy? Finally, ve'en maftirin ahar pesach afikoman. One cannot be maftir afikoman after the Pesach. So I deliberately did not translate the word maftir. What does it mean? So today when we think of maftir, it's the last aliyah, right? The way it is phrased in the Mishnah, en maftirin ahar ha-pesach afikoman. Well, it seems like there are two different things. There's Pesach, which is the korban, the meat, or the meal, and afikoman, which is whatever it is, afikoman. So what do you mean? What do you mean en maftirin? That you don't conclude the meal with afikoman. If maftirin is like the maftir of the aliyot that we have, which is the last one, then it means you cannot conclude the meal with afikoman, and it's not what we do today. It's the last thing that we eat. And actually, the afikoman is the biggest problem from families, because there's a rule that you can't eat after the afikoman, and then there's the rule that they're all minhagim that evolved over time, that you must eat the afikoman before midnight, right? Because the Pesach can only be eaten until midnight, and the afikoman symbolizes or stands for Pesach, which is strange because the Mishnah clearly distinguishes between them. So,
but there is no more Pesach,
and there's no way, and they have no more Pesach. So, but if you really think that you have to eat the afikoman before midnight, and you can eat anything after the afikoman, that means that you have to finish your Pesach meal before midnight, eat the afikoman, and that's it, no more. And for people who speak a lot, know a lot of dvars during the Haggadah, and let's say midnight is 11:30, that can happen. They got to the meal at 11. I heard of people like that say, well, we spoke for so long, and then we barely made it to the meal. They eat for 10 minutes, then quickly the afikoman, and that's it.
Yeah, the wives don't like that.
Yes. So that's why I told
I
you.
don't like that.
It
Right.
sounds like the order's wrong
can-
anyway.
you
We
can
should
have
be
as
eating
much
the
as you
meal
want
first,
after.
right?
Right. So if we eat the meal first, what is the afikoman? What does it stand for? So in my house, when I was growing up, my grandfather used to do that. I told you we would eat read the Haggadah without a lot of commentaries. Eat, then sing the Hallel, talk as much as you want. Eat the afikoman, and then after the afikoman,
Then talk.
not only talk. You could have dessert, you could have cake, you could have coffee, whatever you want. And I did the research. I found the sources for that. Most of the poskim before modern times say that you could, if you the idea of not eating afikoman the way we think of it today, not eating anything out of afikoman, only during the meal. But once you say Birkat Hamazon, you open a new page and you can do whatever you want. So at least coffee, you could have.
So you're supposed to, according to that theory, have a meal, end it with afikoman, then do birkat, and then boom, you're open to.
Yeah,
It's a new
open
day.
a new table. It's a new day. Yeah,
The new meal.
yeah, you could do that. So, but now put all these questions aside, and let's go to Tosefta from a different Masechet Brachot, which talks about something else.
But that chet still doesn't make much sense.
The what? Afikoman, right?
Yeah,
I know that it will make sense. Okay, hopefully.
It always makes sense at the end.
I said this time I'm leaving a lot of open questions.
Okay.
So this is Perek Dalet Halakha Het in the Tosefta, which is what we believe either the Mishnayot that were rejected by Rabbi Danasi, or the counter Mishnah, the underground Mishnah, those who didn't disagree with Rabbi Danasi and made their own Mishnayot.
On the dark web.
Right. So, Ketzat Seder Seuda. What is the order of the meal? Any meal. אורחים נכנסים ויושבים על ספסלים ועל קווי קתדראות עד שיתכנסו. The guests come in and sit on benches in cathedrals until everyone gathers. I deliberately translate cathedrals.
What is a cathedral?
It means like a high chair. The word cathedral comes from imitating the until today in Israel University, when you speak about a chair of a department, it's called a cathedra. So they sit on benches and chairs, or raised chairs, until everybody gathers. נתכנסו כולם, נטלו להם לידיים. Once everyone gathered, they serve them water for the hands. כל אחד ואחד נוטל ידו אחת. Each one washes one hand.
Oh, wow.
מזגו להם את הכוס. They serve them the cup. כל אחד ואחד מברך לעצמו. Each one says his own blessing. Why? Because they're still not together. They're not. This is what we would call, the orduf, or socializing right before the meal. הביאו לפניהם פרפראות. They brought before them appetizers. Each one of them says his own blessing. So what we read here is the order of the meal, not just a regular meal. This is a fancy meal. This is a banquet. So the banquet, this is what you do. It combines the manner, the table manners, with the halachot. And this is Greek and Roman influence. The rabbis were talking like, when you want to have a meal like nobility, this is what you do. People come in, you don't rush to sit at the table. They mill about, they talk to each other, they wash hands, they only wash one hand because they're going to dip. They dip what is called appetizers, they're going to dip and eat. Finger food, right? So to eat the finger food, you have to wash one hand. You're not eating bread yet.
So we've actually continued this custom.
Yes.
The first time we wash, you don't say blessing.
Yes. So the karpas, when everybody got like, every household is the same, right? Wash your hands, no blessing. And you always have this one person, I said the blessing. Okay, don't worry, right? We're so nervous about that.
I think we were in Morocco, like in Fez, walking around, and our guide led us into the back room of the store. And everyone, like the owners and the workers, were sitting around this big plate eating. We were talking about dipping. There's this giant plate of food.
Yeah.
Everyone's just dipping and grabbing and eating.
Yeah,
It's
the
crazy.
different culture completely. In ours, this is more like this is the. By the way, if you went to a medieval palace in Europe, that would be the same. But among the Arabs and the Bedouins, the custom is you bring a huge tagine or pilaf, where people just take rice and meat with their hands and eat it, or with pita.
Yeah.
Right. But here they come. There's a sort of central plate, but each one washes one hand. They get a cup of wine. So this is the no, it's not aperitif. What do you call the first cup before the meal? The name for that? Appetizer? There's an appetizer wine.
Aperitif.
Oh, aperitif. Aperitif is correct. Okay. And they also eat appetizers. Now, why are they doing that?
So they
Why-
bless the wine.
No, but why are all the guests milling around and not going to where the banquet is going to take place? What is the purpose of that? They're not networking at the time. They really wanted to eat. So
Smorgasbord has better food than the meal.
No, you mentioned that.
okay. So remember, okay. Alu ve'esebu. They went up and reclined. So the banquet hall is raised. It's in a different room, and there you recline. You don't sit. So that's in the first one. You sit on benches and chairs. Now we have recliners. You lie down. Now they bring water again. Even though you already washed one hand, now you wash both. Now the second cup comes. Even though even though you said the blessing for the first one, you said the blessing on the second. They serve the appetizers. Wait, it's a second course of appetizers, right?
Yep.
So this is exactly like the Seder night. We do dip twice, right? They serve the appetizers. Even though he said the blessing for the first, he says the blessing on the second. And one says the blessing for everyone, because now they're eating together. Now look at the next line. הבא אחר 3 פרפראות, אין לו רשות להיכנס. If one comes after 3 appetizers, he is not allowed to come in, right? That would be nice when you send the email from Bet Shalom, right? We have there's a banquet, there's a dinner. If you come after 3 appetizers, forget it. You're never allowed to need you in. Yeah.
Tell the caterer that.
So this is already three times.
No. So there's a second course of appetizers, but they bring more.
In different
Yes.
ways. Okay, different. Okay.
So Amar Rabban Shimon, now Halakha word very interesting. Amar Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, זה מנהג גדול היה בירושלים. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel said there was a great practice in Jerusalem. What was it? פורסים מטפחת על גבי הפתח. They would hang a scarf by the door. כל זמן שהמטפחת פרוסה, אורחים נכנסים. As long as the scarf is there, the guests can come in. Once the scarf is removed, you're not allowed to come in.
We do it the opposite.
Right? It's like there's a flag by the door. Once it's removed, that's it. The event is locked.
From college. Right?
Why? Where does this come from?
Stay out.
Right. The scarf is there. Stay away.
So where did this come from?
You never did that, no.
Very simple.
Right.
We're in a mentality of pre-made, prefab meals or ingredients or all that. But there are in the reality of the tabah, they mentioned shelo lekalkel tabah. Not to the tabah is the chef, but also the slaughterer, right? He wants to know how many people come. Am I slaughtering a goat or a lamb or a cow, right? Because you have nothing to do with the leftovers. So you have to cook for the guests who are there. That's why you came in. While you were coming in, the chef starts cooking. If you came after 3 appetizers, the meal is already ready or in process, and you're going to mess up the whole thing. So we're sorry, we can't let you in, right? So it's a completely different mentality.
It's a 2-goat limit.
What?
Like a 2-goat limit.
No, as much as
Whoever, you have 100 guests, you slaughter 5 cows. One more person comes, you don't have a slice to, I know, you could cut a chicken, by 8, let's say, right? So you want your, no, by 4, it depends, or by 2.
Depends if guys or women are eating.
Right, exactly. So whatever you want to cut it by, you have to calculate guests, for chicken, whatever. It's very simple.
But that's just the opposite of the concept of Pesach,
Right.
right? Where we say let all
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
hungry
That's why
come.
the Pesach, you have to sign up for the Pesach to know exactly how many people are there because you can't prepare afterwards. However, to make it a fancy event, we're going to do all the things that nobility did when they had their meals. That's why we recline.
So how long does it take to roast a lamb?
What?
How long does it take to roast a
Exactly.
lamb?
Ask.
Sacrifice and-
3 hours. We do it every year.
No. Can you do it faster than 3 hours?
Sacrifice.
When I cooked it, I did.
Hold it.
Is this a
Oh.
medium-sized lamb or a large lamb? Or
So you're saying that the up until the third appetizer, we're talking about a 3 hour time span?
Could be. Well, maybe they had need. I don't know. Whatever they had. I don't know if it takes 3 hours. If you slice it, it takes faster.
No, we do
Probably.
it in one piece,
Yeah.
and it's 3 hours.
Okay, so you do it whole. So now,
The seder is a fancy
Yeah,
Roman.
yeah.
What they say?
One whole piece.
Roast
Royalty.
No, the seder is
What
a
age are we
fancy
talking about?
Roman.
Who's the royalty?
right, it's a good point. So royalty or nobility is the nobleman, the Roman nobleman who lived in Jerusalem, noble Greeks who lived in Jerusalem, and the Jews look at them. I think that is a great message to deliver, around the table, that we are now, it's anachronistic, but it's archaic, whatever. But those people are long gone. We are preserving their practices because we wanted to show the world that despite the exile, we're still royalty, right? There's a word that was preserved in Hebrew when you speak about a banquet hall, or it's called traklin. There's a prosdo and traklin. Both these words are Latin. Prosdo, the hallway, is prosidium, where you proceed to get into the and traklin comes from clinium, 3 recliners. That's where usually you had a meal, not with not many guests. So the Baal Habayit with 2 guests would sit in that triclinium. I don't know if it's healthy to eat like that.
In the recliner?
Like that.
With the grapes and all that.
Like in the Roman.
It's definitely not healthy to try to throw fire. I saw someone doing that, like home videos. So he was like, drinking that and spitting it up while reclining. So all came back. It's crazy. So now if we go back,
That's a Darwin Prize, right?
now if we go back, it makes sense. Look, even the way that they present it is we want to.
Not, the whole
It's not about Pesach.
It's not about Pesach.
No,
It's just the
it's
way
regular,
if
it's
it's
just like
fancy,
table manners and brachot. How do you
Right.
combine it? So now we go back to source number 1. Mazgul or kos rishon, the first cup that comes, you're still at the appetizer stage. So Mishnah Gimel, הביאו לפניו מטבל בחזרת עד שמביא לפרפר את הפת. He says now, okay, we know it. We're like royalty. We're not going to the meal right away. We're dipping. We're socializing, even though it's only the family, right? We want to feel important tonight. It's like you want to have a nice restaurant like a meal at home, and you light the candles, or maybe because you didn't pay the bill, so you have to do it. So הביאו לפניו, and then they bring the food. מצה וחזרת וחרוסת ושני תבשילים. And then you dip again, because when you went to the main course, there was another round of appetizers. You do the appetizer downstairs and upstairs, and you eat. You start with the food. And now roll down to the last question. The kid asked an appropriate question for the time of the Mishnah. בכל הלילות אנו מטבילים פעם אחת. Every other night, when we eat at home, we dip. We do eat. They would start with vegetables, but they do it once. Why are we doing it twice tonight? The answer is tonight we're royalty. Royalty first start. They have the social time, and then they go up. Now, at the time of the Talmud, this was gone. They didn't do that. So they say, what do you mean every night we dip? We don't dip. We don't do that. So they say, we don't dip even once. Tonight, we dip twice.
Because they didn't have the appetizers. By the time
No,
of the Talmud.
they didn't have it. Not in the fancy meals either, because they were not under the Greek and Roman rule. They were under the Parthians, and then the Zoraida. So it's a different story. Then the question about the meat was taken out because people stopped eating roast meat. Instead, they stuck in שבכל הלילות אנו אוכלים בין יושבים בין מסובים. הלילה הזה כולנו מסובים. Tonight we're all reclined. Why did the Mishnah didn't put it in? because not everybody was reclined. Only the person who was leading the seder was reclining, and only the person who was leading the seder would drink the wine also.
Really?
Not everybody would drink the wine. It clearly says, "Heviu lefanav mazgulo." They like he's the king. Everybody serves him, which is a relief for if you can't drink wine on Pesach
Right.
or year round. I wrote about it a couple years ago, and I got emails from recovered alcoholics or people who have allergies. They're like, "Thank you, because you can't. What are we going to do with the wine or grape juice? We cannot have that." So the rule is, if the one who leads the seder does it, is enough. If you have at least one, if not,
But that's not halakha today, right?
that's not known halakha today,
Okay.
not practiced. Yes,
But if you,
Uh,
because they say now that if everyone doesn't
have
drink
to, yeah.
3 or 4 cups, that you
Yeah,
haven't
well,
done.
yep.
Right.
they also say this. My God, no, it's kosher. We also said that you need kosher extra on water. So
I didn't know that.
no, so this is interesting. You say people don't say that. I always, this is how I grew up. Again, my grandfather's the
Right.
seder. We would ask him, Saba, how much wine should we drink? He says, as much as you can. If you can. So
We never say that.
well, I know, but there was no stress. No, but it was no stress around. Listen, you're a little
Only
kid.
4 glasses.
Yeah, not everybody around the table is an adult. So 2 or 3 years ago, I started writing my grandfather's minhagim, and I did the research to see what is it based on. And there's a paper trail of poskim who say apparently only the mesader, only the leader of the seder has to do this, and even that person only has to drink from each cup the majority of a revi'it, which is 3.5 ounces of wine. This is really tiny. It's not, but that's
Right.
yeah. Kosher for Pesach scotch. I did the potato one. So they took out the thing. They put the mesubin. Fine.
What about if everybody participates in leading the city? So a lot of people have
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah. But you can still designate one person to be
The drinker, not
the drinker. Yeah.
the designated
I want
drinker.
to
The designated drinker. Okay.
It's a job
So
of
we still have
everybody.
to. Yeah. So a couple of things. If we want to review the Mishnah, so what the conclusion about this 10th chapter of Psahim is that the order of the seder in the early years was first food, then talking, then Sipur Yitzhak Mitzrayim, but slowly it was reversed. I think most probably because it just didn't work. The once you ate, people fell asleep and people were heavy with wine. So let's talk first and then do that. Also, we see that the questions corresponded to the Pesach Matzah Maror, and then they switched one question. Okay. Now I want to go.
Rabbi, when was the modern Haggadah actually written?
The modern Haggadah is so good. It kept building over the years. I think crystallized in the 9th century. No, that's later, but 9th, 10th century.
Where was it?
The Geonim of Babylonia. They are the ones who start writing the full text of every prayer.
So at that point in time, they said we're not gonna follow it was back then that they.
Yeah. It was the Mishnah said one thing, the Talmud changed it, the Savorim changed it, the Geonim changed it, Rambam changed it. Each one changed a little bit, and not necessarily with this halakha. So almost every halakha went through transformation, and the more you advance into mass communication, the less flexibility you have. So Rambam was disseminated with manuscripts, but it was rapid. By the time he wanted to write his second revision of his Mishneh Torah, everybody already had a copy of his book. So he made sure that he works the corrections in a way that fit the original text, that it wouldn't take more space. And then he messed up a lot of people because they're trying to figure out what was he saying. But then Rabbi Yosef Karo, when he wrote the Shulchan Aruch, he came with the invention of the printing press, and he knew how to use it. He traveled to Italy several times to Livorno, where there were good publishing houses, and he made sure that it's well printed. And that's one of the reasons that he took precedence over the Rama, who did something similar in Poland. He knew how to market it. Then you move on to the 20th century, and then whoever has more, people, what is the halakha? You Google it. Whoever has more presence on, will tell you. But still, we're not done with afikoman and also the haroset. There are two elements that I want to review because they said the haroset mitzvah. I want to know what is it. So in the Talmud Bavli, this is sort of number 3. The Gemara has this question: My afikoman. What is afikomen? Here I put it like the Sephardic pronunciation, afikomen. Tell me, how do you say afikoman? Afikomen. Afikoman. Okay. Ayesh kayesh אומרים afikomen. This is probably the Greek pronunciation for that. Amar Rav, shelo ya'akru mehavura lehavura. Afikomen, they should not move from one group to another. What? Where does this come from, right? It's not even about food, right? Shmuel Amar, kegon ordilai li v'gozalaya le'aba. Shmuel says, such as mushrooms and truffles for me, and fledglings for Abba.
Fledglings are little birds?
Yeah, little birds. Gozalaya, like maybe pigeons, or maybe what they call pargiyot. I don't know. ורב חנינא בר שילא ורבי יוחנן אמרו כגון תמרים, כליות ואגוזים. Two other rabbis says something like dates, roasted grain, and walnuts.
No,
so there are 3 opinions that you can't have it after Pesach. And maftirin achar Pesach v'koman. So Rav is completely out of line here.
Yeah.
It's about moving from place to place. Shmuel and Rav Hanina speak about different types of food after the meal. But look at this interesting source, number 4. This is in Bechorot.
But what it said,
Yeah.
the mission was you don't have afikomen
Right.
after Pesach.
So
And you've had the Pesach as, in theory, as
Right.
a meal.
right.
So it means that after your meal, you don't have the afikomen.
Right. Right.
But
So-
they're saying,
you cannot-
no,
So
it
that still
adds
makes sense.
mushrooms or-
It makes no sense. So you can't bring. Shmuel says, I usually after the meal I have like mushrooms and truffles.
So
It is
on
not
this time, I
not
won't do it.
Arnie,
Ah.
not shrooms, mushrooms. I go
You are looking like the best Pesach ever, man.
He says no. He says don't.
That's what's going on. Kosher Passover edibles.
So we said it doesn't say that he did that. You can't do it. Usually you bring dates and grain and roasted. Don't bring it at the Pesach.
In every meal.
In every other
they
meal,
do
in
it,
general.
But for Pesach, they will
Right.
do it.
Right. But look at number 4. This is from a different discipline. The Gemara says in Bechorot, it's a famous rule. I mean, it's a famous Talmudic rule. Kol echad deplige Rav u'Shmuel. Whenever Rav and Shmuel disagree, hilchet kerav b'Yisur v'chishmuel bedin. Halakha is like Rav in Isur and like Shmuel in Dinim. Meaning, if it has to do with Isur, meat and dairy, or any other type of prohibitions that are sort of between us and God, Rav is the authority. But when it's dinim, which is monetary laws, Shmuel is the authority. And that was explained to me by one of my professors in Bar Ilan, Professor Feldblum. He said the reason that this is where the Talmud shows sort of the geography of the rabbis. The Rav immigrated or made yerida from Eretz Israel to Bavel. So Shmuel is a local. Shmuel was born and raised in Haggadah. So the Gemara says, when it comes to Isurim, that prohibitions that are based on the tradition of the Torah, Isur ve'eter, basar b'halav, all these, Rav is the authority. When it comes to the monetary laws that have to do with the local practices, agreements, contracts, etc., Shmuel is the authority. So I thought this might explain also their disagreement here. Rav comes from Eretz Israel. Afikomen is a Greek word, and the practice was probably an Eretz Israeli practice, which Rav was familiar with. Shmuel was not familiar with. Rav Hanina bar Shila and Rabbi Yohanan also have Eretz Israel origins. So now it will make sense. Why? Because afikomen was a practice in the Greek culture, where after the meal, you go around for dessert hopping.
Go to other people's houses.
You go to other people's houses, but only for dessert. So we used to do it when I lived in New Jersey, in Deal, for Sukkot. People would invite you because how many people can you fit in the sukkah? Come to my sukkah for dessert. And apparently, there was also a custom in Greek society. You have a fancy meal, but come over for dessert. So Rav, who's from Eretz Israel, knows this practice. Says, "Maya fikuman shelo ya'akru mehavura lehavura," and that fits perfectly because en maftirin nahar Pesach afikuman. You don't conclude the Pesach with afikuman. Every other meal you conclude with schmoozing, socializing with other people. Pesach, it's your family, it's your nuclear group that sticks together. You don't go from place to place. Shmuel says, no, I don't know what you're talking about. It means the extra food after the meal. No. Rav Hanina Bar Shila and Rabbi Yohanan, who are from Eretz Israel, have a remnant of that. They say it's the dessert that you bring. Yes, people would go from place to place for the dessert. So now,
Just what's amazing is the disparity. I mean, so you have what you would think is an important part of the Seder.
Yes.
It's not just extra.
Mm-hmm.
And the disparity in what it is pretty wide.
It is. But that's what happens when you have a concept that is rooted in time and space and a certain society, and you move away from it, we have no idea. And a lot of what we do here is based on social norms, and we even the Talmud remains clueless when it comes to that. A much more serious problem is the issue of head covering for women that was rooted in a certain practice in the Mishnah, but then the Talmud looks at it from a different perspective, and they're not clear on what people used to do, and they interpret the words differently, and then later generations it keeps on accumulating. So that's important. So I think with those things, there are certain things that are harmless. So with the way we do the afikoman today is nice. It's okay. I mean, it's exciting for the kids to either steal and hide the afikoman, but some people believe that if you didn't eat the piece of the afikoman at the end of the seder, you can never finish the seder.
Right. That's right.
Yeah. So my father.
Because that's a shtus minha that's sent around to scare people so that they
Keep them
Right.
connected.
So my father one year gave the afikoman to one of his grandkids. Go hide it. The kid hid it
Never
and
found.
fell asleep.
Right.
And it was in REM sleep. It was deep sleep. My father finishes the seder. He goes and wake up. Where is the nothing? Since then, he gives him fake afikoman. It's like he's like he keeps the real one for himself, which is whatever. Okay.
Proverbial.
1 year we had the dog eat that.
But now, okay. So now, one more thing. I want to know what is this haroset, right? And I clipped it from the translation that appeared in the text, which was, they said in parentheses, haroset is a mixture of sweet fruits, right? The whole thing. But why did they say haroset mitzvah and you have to bring it like twice? So in Talmud Bavli, in Psahim 32, they say this. כל הכלים שנשתמשו בהם חמץ בצונן, any dish which was used for cold חמץ, משתמש בהן מצה, could be used for מצה, חוץ מן בית שאור, except for the dish of starter dough, a dish in which you keep the starter dough, or the sourdough, you cannot make kosher, even though it's cold. Why? מפני שהוא מוצא קשה. This is very plain translation. I put strong leavening, meaning the level of leavening agents there is high. אמר רב אשי, and רב אשי adds, ובית חרוסת, כבית שאור, שחימוצו קשה דמי. The haroset container is like the starter dough container, since it is strong leavening. So haroset, you cannot make the container kosher for Pesach. You have to get a new one. Which means that you had haroset all year round. This was not something that was specific for Pesach, right? Why and right? I mean, right? Yeah. So what is it? In it, Amar Rav Papa. It's a different discussion in the Talmud, also in Psahim in 115:2. Amar Rav Papa, Shma mina, Hai Hasa, Tzarich lesheku'eh b'haroset mishum kafa. Rav Papa said that means that you must dip the lettuce in haroset because of the worms.
Lettuce?
Yeah. So lettuce or whatever.
The question is what's charoset?
So haroset, we know what haroset was. Haroset was very, very concentrated vinegar.
That's right.
That could have been most probably grain vinegar and not the wine vinegar, because wine vinegar the wine was expensive, the wine vinegar was expensive. So why do you dip because it has worms?
It cleans
Kill
it.
the worms.
It doesn't clean it, it kills them. And it prevents them from growing in your stomach, which is, back in the day.
They could also fall off.
all fall off. But
All
no,
fall off.
no. But the Talmud, I checked the sources. They're not concerned about them falling off.
They're not concerned about eating them. They're only concerned about them being alive.
Being alive in your belt. Yeah, that's the
Yeah, I
concern.
was just gonna say, why don't they wash them?
But they're not kosher.
They did no. So that's another myth. Like, so they did wash. They washed the but they knew that they were parasites deep inside that you cannot remove. Today we're living in a different world. We killed everything, including some of our of our immune system, whatever, I don't know what. But they had serious problem with that. They talk about when you say about the Halakha says even Shulchan Aruch, the water that you draw from the wells to do the matzah, you don't have to filter it. I mean, they know there could maybe bugs in it, but it's fine. We're not worried about those bugs because they come from the wells, whatever.
Well bugs.
No, it's I can tell you,
But they used to
if
do it
any of
every
us
day.
had to eat at the house of of Rabbi Yosef Karo or others, we wouldn't eat. You would not eat there. You wouldn't trust the kashrut. You wouldn't have there was completely different rules. The Shulchan Aruch speaks about worms in meat that you could eat
Or cheese.
or cheese. Even if they still hop on the table, still good because they
Hey,
give them
come
the
back
cheese.
here.
Come back here. Shulchan Aruch, Siman Pei Bet.
There's a French
Wow.
cheese that has worms in it.
Yeah,
And the Shulchan Aruch says
it goes with your tequila.
that you can eat that cheese because it's not that they crawled into the cheese, but they were in
They grew
cheese
from the cheese.
to begin with. So
spontaneously.
as long as they were spontaneous
Generation.
you can eat them.
Right. So bottom line,
Because then they're
What
not
do you mean,
meat.
right? Why?
Why is that right?
that's for a different
They
question.
come from
they
the
do,
cheese.
right.
They come
Yeah.
from the
Who
cheese.
cares? There's still worms.
No, but if they
The
come
French
from the
don't eat
cheese.
No, you said right from the country.
Yeah.
No right that you eat.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
No.
So-
It's
But
not
to-
milk.
Another
This is a
reason to
cheese
dislike
that
the
actually
French.
has.
Wait, to sum up, and then we'll go back to the cheese. To sum up, I want to look at the way the seder was understood at the time of the Mishnah. It's completely different
Is grain vinegar.
during the year.
Oh, and on Pesach?
They do a different
Wine
haroset with vinegar or salt water.
Or salt.
But
Right,
the purpose of the
also
haroset was
lemon juice.
it's not a dip;
So
it's something to kill the bugs that are there. Yeah. Yeah. So different order, different understanding, something that has evolved. I would say
thought it was French.
if you have
Okay.
wait, maybe I'll stop sharing like those. No, really, I think that we'll conclude here. I hope everybody enjoyed. Everyone who listens to it, and if you were here, you would hear what we're going to say off the record.